So today's stream has been pretty miserable, chat. We've not had much good stuff to talk about today. So we're going to finish today's stream on a funny story. It's a funny story we can finish on today. That'll cheer everybody up. So this came in from the BBC the other day. My 20k bill for holiday lets deemed second homes. Judith Robbins fears bankruptcy after her holiday lets were reclassified as second homes. Yeah, because they are homes that you own outside of your first one. So of course they're second homes. What else did you expect? Let's read on, shall we? Judith Robbins runs 8 self-catering units in one building in Blackpool, which she lets out to families on a tight budget, so AirBnB, i.e. second homes. But in October, the 75-year-old was told 6 of her Westwood holiday apartments near North Pier had been reclassified, leaving her with a council tax debt of about £20,000 that she said she could not afford to pay. Well, luckily, Judith, I've got a really great solution for you. You're sitting on 8 prime pieces of real estate that you don't need because you don't live in them at the moment. At all, actually. You have your own house that you live in, and you have all of these very expensive assets that if you have a tax debt, you can sell. That's just my advice, my little tip from me to you, Judith, that if you really want to pay this tax debt, you can just sell one of your many, many, many flats that you own, that you've hoarded to use as Airbnbs. The government said people had been given a year's warning that property should meet the rules. Mrs. Robbins was billed up just over £1,500 for each of the Band Aid properties going back 2 years. She said, I read it in the newspapers about the second home's crackdown, but we never considered for a moment they would impact us. It really is unbelievable. We've been here for 22 years and I've never once been behind with any of my payments. Yeah, I mean, like, you literally read that there would be a crackdown on people who owned more than one home. And you, as somebody who owns more than one home, was like, won't affect me, would it? Like, I mean, come on, like, how stupid do you have to be, chat? It's like, I mean, fundamentally, what these rules are about is ensuring that residential accommodation is there for people to live in. We have a massive shortage of available housing for actual residents in our seaside towns especially, because they're all being used as Airbnb and holiday lets to make easy money for a bunch of boomers with more capital than they should have access to or that they need, you know? And so what the tax is for is to disincentivize the usage of beachfront property as a holiday let rather than as residential property for people to live in. You know, houses for people to use as accommodation and not holiday lets, which should be hotels, right? If you're going to get holiday rental in a seaside town, get a fucking hotel. That's what they're for. They are for short-term accommodation. Residential housing is for long-term accommodation, hence the name. For residents, not tourists. Under the old rules, Mrs. Robbins was billed about £3,500 a year in business rates and perceived small business rates relief. But the holiday apartments were reclassified as second homes by the Valuation Office Agency under new tax rules that came into force in 2023. Now Mrs. Robbins is liable to pay about £9,000 a year in council tax. I don't know what we're going to do. It means we can't afford to stay because they want more money from the flats that we can actually take. Good. This is the point. It is a disincentive for you to continue to use prime real estate for short-term Airbnb revenue rather than it being used for somebody to live in as a house. And again, you can't afford to pay the bill, you can just sell. The tax changes came as part of a government crackdown on second homes and holiday lets, following claims they were limiting the supply of housing in coastal and rural communities. And people wonder why our rural communities are ghost towns, because people can't afford to live there anymore, because the housing costs are stratospheric, because the available housing for people to actually live in is being constrained by the amount of people who are buying up these properties for short-term lets and Airbnb. Since the rules came into force, more than 9,000 properties in England have been reclassified. Ian White from Hotel Association Stay Blackpool has said he had been contacted by 8 other business owners in a similar situation in the town. He said it significantly hit the traditional holiday flats that Blackpool and every other seaside resort in the country relies on. All of the businesses that have contacted me are considering selling because they don't know where they're going to get the money from to cover these new bills. Good. Hopefully they get sold to people who want to actually live in them. All of the businesses that have contacted me are considering selling because they don't know where they're going to... Sorry, I've already read that. And again, right, these are hardly businesses that provide prosperity or a level of income to the city of Blackpool, right? Or any of these coastal towns. They are rentiers. They provide no actual service. They provide no actual utility. All they are doing is collecting rent. They are parasites, basically, as all landlords are parasites. They're not providing us actual increased productivity or prosperity to the area that they live in. All they do is suck money out that could be, again, used to actually house people in the area that they can actually live in. Mrs. Robbins said she was appealing against this decision with the help of her grandson, but had been told the process could take up to 6 months. Her grandson Jordan said, "Nobody wants to help. Nobody wants to get involved. That this legislation needs to change or business and people's lives will be affected." Yes, it is supposed to affect people's lives. It's supposed to get you to sell. It's supposed to get you to realise that you can't just use a bunch of residential property for short-term lets. That's not what it's for. Won't they just go to conglomerate landlords who can afford the bill? But they can't afford the bill because the actual market rate for these Airbnbs, as has been said by the people in the top of the article, are not high enough to cover the cost of owning the actual asset itself, plus all the additional costs that are applied to second homes. It's not commercially viable, so why would anybody, other than someone who's using it to buy as a first home, want to acquire it? It's not profitable to be used as an Airbnb, and that's the whole point of the tax. Blackpool South MP Chris Webb told the BBC he had raised Mrs Bobbins' case with Housing Secretary Angela Rayner. Labour MP Webb said he understands the significant pressure that is putting on small understanding operators like Judith Robbins. "I will continue to press for a fairer, more responsive system." This is the fair system. This is the fair system that's been created. Why are you trying to side with the landlords as a Labour MP, Chris? What are you doing? In areas like the Lake District, where second homes or holiday lets can account for more than 50% of the housing in some places, a rule change has been seen as necessary. Lib Dem MP Tim Faren, MP for Westmoreland and Lonsdale, said, "Communities like ours in the Lakes and in the Yorkshire Dales have a situation where so many of the properties that could be lived in by local families are either second homes occupied by people who hardly live there at all, or short-term lets. You get a situation where so many properties are gobbled up by non-permanent residents that there is nowhere for the local people to live. You lose your primary schools, secondary schools, GPs, you lose your communities." We literally have a Lib Dem MP, Tim Faren, being more anti-landlord than Labour MP Chris Webb. What is going on? But Faren said he did have sympathy for the Robbins family and those in a similar situation. He said that the current system was far too complicated and called for wider planning reform. A government spokesman said, "We believe it is right property should meet these rules." And so they should. So, if ever you feel like you're hard done by, spare a thought, chat. Spare a thought for the poor aggrieved landlords having to pay a little bit of a surcharge on the fact that they are buying up residential properties that could be used for people to actually live in as mine as a first home, as a way of being able to get cheap rental passive income from people who should be using hotels in the first place. Spare a thought for the poor oppressed landlords, chat. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for memberships. It's just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.